Okay, welcome back everyone. This is the first video and we're gonna get going on the project. If you are curious about what I'm doing here, I have an intro video, which I'll link below, of what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. But this video, we're just gonna get going. So real quick about my setup. Over here on the left, I have tmux running, and so I can have different panes. So for example, this first one will be my editor. So here I have a blank Rails project, and then if I switch over to this one, this will be where I'll run my console stuff, so I can start the server, do get status stuff in here. So that's how that'll work. Over here, again, have my static mockups, and then here I have just a blank Rails project using Rails 6, Ruby 2.6.4, which are basically latest as of this recording. And with that, let's get going. So I think the thing I want to go for today is this input page. And I'm going to try and do it basically how I would do this at work or with my own side projects. I'm going to try and get it functional and then worry about styling after that. So it'll look really bad, but it should work. And then we'll make it look pretty later. Okay, so to start out, I want to make a model that can represent this daily data. And so this is a record that we'll make every day. Boolean values for these 3 attributes, and I think there's 7 total, and I'll add those. The mockup only shows 3. Boolean attributes, did you do it, yes or no? And then we'll also want a date to register which day we're doing this. So Rails has a timestamp that it applies to every model, but there are scenarios where maybe you create a record through a seed file or through something else to where I don't want to use the timestamp that's given. I want to have like a special field to represent that. So we'll try to use the generators as much as possible. So Rails generate scaffold. Let's call it record since that's what I said. And now let's add the attributes. So we'll have physical, mental, existential, Boolean, relational, financial, personal, and then career. And then lastly, we'll have our day that that this record belongs to, and so we'll just make that a date. There's a chance in the future this may become a date time or something like that. Not going to be dealing with time zones right off the bat. We can come back to that when we need it. Okay, so running the scaffold here, you can just see, made quite a few things. Made us a database migration. We have a model, we have a controller, and it made all the forms. So a lot of stuff got generated for us. So let's start with the migration. So create record. Have all of our attributes. Our day that we store, this would be the day that the record is for. We want to make null false because we absolutely have to have a day for the record or this doesn't make any sense. The rest of these, we could make a default of false for the columns. They are Booleans. That might be a good idea, just to make, maybe there's some computation stuff or some querying stuff that'll be easier later because we know we have default in here. Don't have to worry about nils quite as much. Okay, so there's a migration, creating a table called records, added a bunch of fields, a lot of Booleans and one date, and then we have the timestamps that Rails automatically makes. So let's switch back over to the console. Run Rails DB migrate. Okay, so migrated. Now let's look at our routes. So it should have automatically makes this thing called a resource, which is just all the RESTful routes. So new, create, edit, update, show, delete. I don't think we want destroy right now, but we'll just keep it like that. So the other thing that it made for us was the records controller. And so it gave us kind of all this default behavior. So we have an index page, we have a new, edit, delete, etc. So here's my, I'll keep it in phone mode since this is basically going to be a phone web app. Okay, so here's our home page. So if we go to record/new, okay, so here is our default generated form that our scaffold made. And so if we pick some of this stuff, sure, September 7th. So we made the record. So here's the record we made. We have an index page at /records. Nothing too exciting yet, but we do have some behavior here. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to make a route that when we hit this route, it will check to see if there's a record for the day already. And if there's not one, it'll let us make a new one. But if there is one, then it will take us to it so it will take us to the update of that record. So basically I want to have something where I can get like /input. Maybe I can do like /today. And I want to send it to, I don't know, maybe the today controller index. This is a little bit outside of the RESTful paradigm, but I think it will work. Okay, so let's just go with that. Today controller index. So let's go back to the console. Let's do Rails G controller. Call it today. I don't need to pass. You could pass index here, but it's going to try and make a view for it, and I don't want a view because I'm really just going to check if a record exists and then redirect to the right place. So let's do generate controller today. And it doesn't work because our routes are wrong. Missing controller key on routes definition. Oh yeah, it's because I forgot to say this route goes to this controller. So let's try the generation again. Okay, so we have this empty controller. I'm going to make an action called index. And what I want to do here is I want to see if there's a record for today, go to edit, else go to new. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say record for today. I'm going to do record where the day is the current day. So day.today, again, we're ignoring time zones and all that kind of stuff. I would not put this in like production ready serious app, but it's fine for now and we can refactor later. Okay, so record for today, we're going to query it where the day is today. We're going to say get the first one. So if the record for today is present, we're going to do something, otherwise we're going to do something else. So if it's present, so we already have a record for today, so we want to go to the update of this record. So we're going to redirect to record path of record for today, I believe. Otherwise, we're going to go to new record path. Okay, so let's try that out. So if we go from over here to /today, so we have a record already. And it is today's date. So this should take us to the update. Okay. Well, it took us to the show. Oh yeah, so because this is the show path, record path. What I want is edit record path. Let's do that again. So /today. Okay, so now we're editing this. So that works. So let's jump over and let's delete that record. So I'm going to open the Rails console. I'm just going to do record.destroy all. So now if we go to today, yeah, now we are making a new record. So let's go ahead and save this. Create. Go back to today, and we're editing it. Okay, so that's good. The only thing that isn't great about this yet is we're able to set the day here, which really doesn't make sense. If this is if you're only ever editing today's record, it should just automatically assign the day. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our records controller. And so one thing that Rails does for you, so let's look at this create action. So when I'm on this page right here, well, let's do records.new. So if we're making a new record, hit the the new action, which makes this a new blank record. We fill out we go to the new page, which has the form, which is in this partial. And so here we see all of our checkboxes. So we've got one for physical, mental, existential, etc. And so when we submit this, it comes to this create action. And it goes to create because of the form right here. So this is using the new Rails form with the model as the record. And I guess it tells based on the path which action to send it to, because I didn't specify whether I'm doing create or edit here. So when you submit this form, it comes to create, and the first thing we do is we try and make a new record using record params. And record params is just a method we have here at the bottom, and it's a way to whitelist all the parameters. So if you had a user model that you were creating, and there was say an admin flag on the user model, you wouldn't want the form to be able to set that admin record, that admin flag, unless that is your intention of the form. So you don't want people to be able to post and manipulate data that they're not supposed to be able to change. So we have this little record params, which is just a method that takes the params, uses Rails strong parameters, and permits which attributes we can change. So what I want to do, instead of on this create action here, coming back to this, instead of passing record params here, I want to pass something called merged. I'm going to call it merged params. And I want to merge in the date. So I want to take the record params that have been whitelisted, and I want to merge in the current day. So day.today. And so we want to use this on the create action, so that way in the form we can take out this day field. So now we don't need this day field. It will automatically set it for you. Let me go ahead and delete all the records just to keep things simple. Okay, so now when I make this, it takes me to show. So now if I go back to /today, I'm updating this record and it sets the date automatically. And then because we only change that on the create action, we're using merge params here. In the update action, we're still just using the regular record parameters. So we're only changing that value there. Okay, so now we've got a decent structure here. So let's go ahead and commit that. I have this little tool I like called GetX on Mac. It's free. It's just a way to visualize your changes in Git visually. There are other ways you can do it, but I like this one. So we call this setup record CRUD and /today. I'm going to force push here because I was messing around on this project earlier, but we're going to roll with this. Okay, so now we have this input section done. So what do I want to do next? I think next we can start to add some user accounts. So right now we're just creating records at random and we can add some user authentication to that. So when you do this in Rails, there's a couple gems you can use. There's devise, which is very popular, and used by a lot of things. Very popular. I've used it myself. Recently, I've liked using this gem called sorcery, which is still pretty popular. Not quite as much as devise, but I do like that it does a little less for you. So it kind of provides the things you need, which is like creating secure passwords and changing those passwords, logging in, but it doesn't do as much scaffolding of like all this other stuff. And so I like using sorcery just because it kind of does everything you want it to do and then nothing else extra, which is nice. You still kind of get to choose everything. So let's get that installed. Gonna go to Ruby gems, copy this, go to our gem file, and let's add the sorcery gem, and then bundle. It's been a while since I've set this up, so hopefully this goes smoothly. Okay, so let's just follow the docs. So we're going to install sorcery. Okay, so it's saying that I need to migrate next, but I don't think it made anything. It didn't make any migration files, which is interesting. Maybe it's assuming I already have a user model. Okay, so let's take this scaffold. And I don't think I want to scaffold this. I think I just want the model. And then we're going to get rid of this piece that says migration false. So we'll make a user model, give them an email, an encrypted password, and then a salt, which if you don't know what those things are, they're just ways to basically we're going to encrypt the password, but we're also going to take a random string, a salt, and add that to the password. So that way if, let's say our encryption scheme is broken, everything has its own random data added to it. So it's not like you can just go crack everything. Everything has its own, like each one would have to be individually figured out. Not an encryption expert. That's just my 10-second take of it. Okay, so let's make a user model. The name user is already in your application. Okay. And that is because when I ran the sorcery install, it already made this. So why don't we do the, okay, so let's do get clean. I always forget which flags I need here. Okay, so let's basically get rid of all those changes. So now we're just have our gem file. Let's go ahead and generate the user model first. And then run the sorcery. It is odd that those are in that order. Does it say anything about assuming you have a user? Okay. So we have run this generation for the user model, and that gives us a migration file for the user. Let's go ahead and make these null false. As a general idea, you usually want to make as many things null false in your database as possible. If you need that data, it needs to be null false. It just, by enforcing it at this level, at the database level, with a constraint instead of like a model validation, you just, not only you make sure that the data is there, but it's kind of like, it will force you to catch application errors that could go unnoticed to get in the wild. So it would be unfortunate for somebody to make a user account without an email. Like that would break things. Okay, so let's go ahead and migrate. And now let's install Sorcery. I'm wondering if some things have changed in Rails 6. That maybe Sorcery is not handling yet. This like message about user already being in use. I don't think that's a problem because I added the table. I've got the model. Looks like Sorcery installed all of its things. So I think we are okay. Okay, so now we need a controller so they can log in. Let's see what else it wants to do here. Okay, so it looks like this is the sign up controller that we'll do first. So let's do Rails G controller. Let's call it registration. And let's give it a new and a create. Maybe just new. Let's do registrations, plural. It's generally how Rails likes things. Okay, so we're making this controller and we want to, this is the sign up portion. So here we have this controller, this new view that was made, and then this new route. So we have get registration / new. So let's rework that a little bit. Let's do get / sign up to registrations. Oops. Registrations new. Okay, and then let's come over here to our app. Let's go to / sign up. Okay, so now we are on this new page. Oh, this is why they want you to scaffold, because it will set up the form. Okay, so since we are not, well, I guess we can still use our user model. So let's make a new user, user.new. Let's steal from our record form. Let's steal from this to use inside of our signup. We're copy pasting, so we are destined to make a mistake here and spend a lot of time fixing it. But let's go for it. Okay, so instead of record here, using user, because that's what I called it up here, it's the instance variable. Let's go and change this to sign up. Okay, so for these fields now, we want these. We want the this indentation is all messed up. Okay, so we want a password confirmation. Let's get rid of this extra stuff we copied. And then we want an email field as well. Text field. Email. Okay, so now let's refresh over in our app. And it says that does not work. And I think that's because we have not restarted our server. So we installed some new initializer and configuration. Let me make sure that's right. Yeah, so the problem was we had generated this new sorcery initializer, and initializers are not automatically reloaded. Like when I change these things, these files, and I reload them, reload the page, then the server will pick them up. But initializers you need to restart. Okay, so it's saying undefined method users path. So it's saying that this right here, it's trying to post it to users, and that does not exist, and that's because we have not made it. So if we post /signup to registrations, if I can talk, create, might need to do as signup there, but let's see what this does for us. So we add this new route. This is our new page, this is our create, and then let's go ahead and do Rails routes. Pipe that to grep, and I'm going to look for the phrase registrations. We don't have a ton of routes, but trying to save screen space. Okay. So let's go ahead and just try. Let's come in here with the form width. Let's pass a URL. Let's call it signup path. Let's see what it thinks about that. Okay, I missed one instance of record that needs to be at user. Okay, so here in this form, I called it form. It's saying undefined local variable f, and that's because the docs call this f, and it needs to be form. It's like kind of the old convention of doing it. It's just whatever you name the form variable, the form builder. Okay, so that seems to work. So now, because I've made this route, the form is happy, but I haven't made anything appear in the controller to handle that. So if I type in really anything, because I don't have any validation set yet, but if I hit this, it should tell me that there's no create action, which it does. Okay, so here we are. Create. And what do we want to do in this create action? So basically we want to do similar to our record. We want to make some params. Let's just call it signup params. And we're going to accept these three things, the email, password confirmation. And so if we do at user.new, signup params, and then if the user.save works, we'll do something else. So if it works, let's go ahead and redirect to, let's just go to, let's go to our input page or today path for now. If it doesn't, we're just going to render new. And it should show us the errors because we have this at the top of the form. Okay. So let's try that. Let's just hit create. Unknown attribute password confirmation for user. Okay, so that makes sense because we have not told them about anything. Okay, so that's what this next piece is. So we need some virtual attributes since this attribute is not a database column, password confirmation. So the user model doesn't, our user model just has this in it. So it doesn't know about this extra field. Okay. So let's make the minimum password length 8, just for funsies. And let's come back here. So now we should see some errors. Oh, that is lovely. Lovely default styling. Okay. So let's go ahead and make a real user. Just call it test@test.com. Give it a random password. And create. Okay, so now if we come over to our console, do user.first, it says that does not exist, and that's because we made the user after we started the session. So let's do reload, bang, user.first. Okay, did not work, so maybe it's saying undefined method authenticates with sorcery. Might need the config reloaded in this one too. Okay, I guess that was it. Surprised reload doesn't do that, but that must not affect initializers. Okay, so we have our first user, and you can see automatically we have this encrypted password, which is here, and then it has its own salt. So let's go ahead and make another user just to see. Sign up, blah.com, password. Okay, so if I do user.all, you can see here that the salt for the first user is different from the second one. And so the result is that the password itself is different. I use the same password, but here this one has the same prefix, it looks like, but it's $DK, and here we have $XV. So if for some reason this person's password is cracked, they would not automatically get this one because we have this specific salt that is different for each person. Again, not a crypto person. Okay, so now we can create users. So what we want to do is when we create them, let's go ahead and log them in afterwards. And so it looks like you just call login. Do I need to add anything to my application controller? How does it know where this login method comes from? Or is that just magic? And by magic, I mean something I don't understand. We use this in the user model, but I don't see how this controller is actually going to know. I feel like I should have to include something in the application controller. But we will try it. Okay, so this is the login method you pass when you pass an email and password, but I think there's just like a straight, just like log this person in method that you can use. So I have auto login. So we could use that. Okay, so after we create this user, let's go ahead and log them in. They did just sign up. It would be silly for them to have to sign in afterwards. Okay, and the way we're going to know if we've done this, let's go ahead and open the layout. So this is the overarching layout for the application. Each of the views is rendered in this yield block. So if I put something here like hi, then you'll see this reflected on every page. Except for this, because this is a static home page and it's not using the layout. So if I do like records or I do record/new, we see that hi is up top here. Oops, misspelled sign up. Okay, so what I want to do, let's just do a very simple and gross like nav, so we can see if we're signed in. So let's do if we have a current user. Current user is a helper method that is added with sorcery. Just lets us gets the current user if we have somebody signed in, as its name would suggest. So if we have a current user, let's go ahead and link to. Let's give them a logout button. I'm going to call this session path. We're going to log out of our session. We're going to give it the method of delete. And we've not written the session path yet. We'll do that in a second. And if they are not logged in, if they're logged in, let's put their email right here, just so we can see who we are. And if they're not logged in, let's give them a link to, let's come back to that. That's where the login link needs to be. Okay, so we are not logged in. So what we're going to do, we're going to link to a page called login. Well, first let's just make a new account and have it auto sign us in. Test1 at test.com, blah, blah, blah. And so now we should be logged in. And so here it is saying, don't know what session path is. That's because we've not defined it. So let's just delete that real quick. You can see we are logged in. We created a new user and then auto logged them in. So now let's make these session paths. So this would be log in and log out. And so what I'm going to do is make a new controller. Controller session. Let's give it new. Well, here they have it here. Session new, create and destroy. So we need a page to log in, we need an action to send it to, and then we need a log out action. I'm going to call it sessions controller. So let's do Rails destroy to undo what we just did. Just keep things consistent with plurals. Okay, so we have this sessions controller. Let's check our routes. So we made these three things, which are not exactly what we want. So we want like a /login to go to sessions new. We will post to login to actually sign them in. And then we want to use a delete to log out. So it goes to sessions destroy. So now I've got those three routes. We auto-generated these three actions. And I think it made views as well. So we have sessions. Yeah, we have a destroy HTML, which does not make sense because we're going to be just redirecting out of that. Also don't need a create.html. That doesn't make sense either. Okay. So let's go back to our application layout. Now that we have these routes, we can add back in our logout link. So do oh, it's already here. Should be sessions path, I believe. Undefined local variable sessions path. Or is it just session? Okay, let's grep for session in the routes. So it's not, oh, I guess it's called logout. Yeah, so that's the name right there. So it's the logout path. Okay. Let's go ahead and make this a span so it's inline. Give it a little separator. Yeah, look how exciting that is. Okay, so if we click this, let's go ahead and add a confirmation just for fun. So we'll say data confirm logout question mark. I think that's how you do it. Yeah, so logout, yes. And it didn't do anything because our destroy action doesn't do anything. So now we need to find, this is our logout method. So what we're going to do logout, current user, and then we're going to redirect back to, let's go to the login page. So login path. So refresh, logout. Given 1, expected 0. Oh, I guess you don't need to pass current user. That makes sense. It probably knows who the current user is. Okay, so log out. Cool. So we're now logged out. So now we're back in this layout, and we can now give them a login link. Go to login path. Don't need this method delete. Don't need to confirm. Okay, so now when we click this login link, it takes us to the new page, sessions new. Okay, so let's copy a little bit from our sign up or our registrations new. Let's copy that form over. And so what we want here is we just want email and password. Don't need the confirmation. So in our session controller, in the new action, we want to make a new user. Do we want to make a new user here? I guess we do. Yeah. So now we want to use this login method right here where we pass the email and the password. I think that was in the docs. Yeah, so they make a new user, and then they use this login method based on the parameters. And then, so if that succeeds, they use redirect back or to. So if they were on a page, like if they tried to access their dashboard and they weren't signed in, we want to send them back to that. So redirect back to where you were, or let's go to the today path. Otherwise, let's just render new again. Okay, so this should work. So if we do something that doesn't work, so something is not right there. Probably because we, yes. So we copy pasted and it bit us. What a surprise. So in our sign in login view, we're still sending them to sign up path. So we want to send them to login path. So again, try it again. Undefined method errors for no class. So what does login return if it fails? So let's just go ahead and just throw user here. So if login fails, it doesn't return anything, which is interesting. Okay, so we'll need a little more custom error handling here. For now, I'm just going to add a new user here. I'm going to set the user back to new. So if we click this, it just sends us back to login. We'll want to add some messages here. So like in my mockups, obviously we want to add some things to tell them, hey, like you didn't do it right. But we'll come back to that. Okay, so, but if we do test.test.com, it still does not work, which is interesting. Okay, so let's go ahead and throw params and see what is coming through. I bet these are wrapped in a user hash, so it probably needs to be like this or use like strong parameters on it. Yeah. So here, this email and password data is within user. So when I'm doing params of email, it's actually nil. There's nothing there. So since this is kind of a weird case, we'll just avoid strong params. Let's just ask for these two things specifically. Okay, so let's go ahead and, looks like it works. Let's log out. And it works. Cool. Okay. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it for this video. Let's go ahead and commit what we did. So we added a lot of new generated files, made a user model, and we set up. So made a user model, set up login and log out. Okay, I think that's where I'll leave it for this time. Next time we're going to use this user model to start applying that to our records. So when you make something for today, we want that to be scoped to that user. And then we also probably want maybe to look at permissions. I don't think we're quite there yet, but that's probably what I'll do next time. If you enjoyed this, I'll see you in the next video. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below or reach out to me on Twitter at @JohnMosesman. And I will see you next time. Thanks.